Gather around because Toronto has done it again. The Eglinton Crosstown LRT has finally made its debut in the public consciousness, but not by opening, and not by carrying any passengers, and not by delivering on any of its grand promises. That would be far too ordinary. The Eglinton Crosstown LRT has now hit a new milestone. And no, not for an opening date, don't be ridiculous. I mean a different kind of milestone. It has officially managed to hit a pedestrian before it has carried a single paying passenger. Let's just pause there. You know, in most cities, the first time your train makes contact with the public, it's usually something nice like a ribbon-cutting ceremony, free rides for the community, maybe even a marching band. But here in Toronto, we apparently decided the first public interaction with the crosstown would be an ambulance siren. $10 billion, almost 15 years later, and the inaugural achievement is a critical injury. During a carefully planned and expertly executed test run on Eglinton Avenue, a pedestrian was struck by one of our state-of-the-art light rail vehicles, marking a historic moment in the project's timeline. This demonstrates our commitment to ensuring that our trains are capable of operating under real-world conditions, including unexpected obstacles like human beings. Let's watch the news clip of this incident.
A woman is in life-threatening condition after she was struck by an Eglinton Crosstown train in Scarborough Saturday afternoon. Now I'm going to step out of the way to give you a better look at the scene. Toronto police officers tell me this happened just before 1 p.m. on Eglinton Avenue East near Pharmacy Avenue. Now, if you aren't familiar with this area, this is a very busy stretch. It falls between two different shopping centers, and what police officers are saying is that a 64-year-old woman attempted to cross Eglinton Avenue, so going through vehicular traffic and up to the raised crosstown corridor. Now, we don't know the exact circumstances of what happened here, but they did say the operator did try to warn the woman, apparently honked the horn and tried to stop the vehicle in time, but unfortunately did make contact with this person. Toronto paramedics came a short time later and rushed her to a trauma center, again with life-threatening injuries. Now, what you're seeing here is Toronto Police Traffic Services officers. They are trying to piece together what exactly happened here. There's also TTC personnel. And this is really part of an ongoing process of commissioning the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. These vehicles are not open to the public yet. Metrolinx has been doing a thorough testing of this line and trying to get to a point where they are close to real-world conditions. So there were a number of staff already on duty monitoring this, and they have responded. So we did have a chance to speak with Toronto Police, and Acting Inspector Brian Maslowski talks about the need to be careful when
You just can't make this stuff up. Let's not forget the backdrop here. Construction started in 2011. That's right, back when the iPhone 4 was a hot new gadget, when TikTok didn't exist, when some of today's high school students were still in diapers. The line was supposed to open in 2020, but then came delay after delay, construction problems, software glitches, legal battles, design changes, you name it. If there was any way to make this longer, Toronto found it. The delays became so normalized that opening date was no longer a deadline. It was more like a polite suggestion. What began as a $5.3 billion project has ballooned to over $12 billion when you factor in things like the overruns, contract disputes, and inflation. We've spent enough to not just build this line, but an entirely separate transit system in another city, and maybe even throw in a free coffee for the riders. For $12 billion, you'd expect a flawless piece of infrastructure, so safe you could sleep on the tracks without worry. Instead, we have a test train that managed to strike a pedestrian before the public even got to use it. After spending the GDP of a small island nation, our big achievement is to test the train's emergency braking system on a human being. But here's the quick timeline of what's happened so far. In 2011, the Crosstown project officially began. Politicians beamed, cameras flashed, shovels went into the ground. By 2020, they promised, Toronto will have a brand new modern LRT line. Then between 2012 and 2014, we started hearing about minor adjustments. Apparently minor meant shutting down lanes for months at a time while construction workers played whack-a-mole with utility lines. It was okay, they said. This was progress. And who were we to question it? After all, nothing said progress like orange cones breeding down like rabbits across Eglinton Avenue. Then there was 2015 and 16. Businesses along Eglinton Avenue began to suffer. Sidewalks vanished, detours multiplied, and storefronts collected more dust than customers. But we were told it was all temporary. Yes, and so was Continental Drift. Then between the years of 2017 and 2019, this was when the budget really bulked up. From a lean $5.3 billion, the Crosstown got beefy. Billions were added like extra cheese on a pizza, except instead of deliciousness, we got unexpected complexities and technical challenges. That was bureaucratic speak for we didn't plan properly, but please keep the money coming. And then there was 2020. Remember that ribbon cutting we imagined? Instead we got excuses. Oh, and a pandemic. Perfect cover. We're delayed due to COVID, they said, as though they weren't already years behind before the first lockdown. But hey, at least traffic was lighter, because no one was going anywhere, especially not on the Crosstown. Then there was 21-22. Legal disputes erupted between Metrolinx and the construction consortium. It was like a bad divorce, except instead of dividing assets, they were dividing blame. Court filings flew, and Torontonians sat there wondering who exactly was building this thing, a transit company or the writers of a soap opera. Then there was 2023. We were told that they were finally testing trains. But what did testing actually mean? Apparently it meant driving them down Eglinton Avenue very slowly, very occasionally, while engineers stood around with clipboards like they were filming a nature documentary on the mating habits of streetcars. Then in 2024, politicians emerged once again, declaring that the finish line was in sight. It was like hearing your Uber driver say we're almost there for the 5th time, and you were still 20 minutes away. Now, 2025 is here. Metrolinx has assured us that they were doing stress testing. We thought that meant testing the system's limits. Turns out it meant testing the public's patience once again. We've waited so long and spent so much and endured so many promises, only for the project to give us the public transit equivalent of a pie in the face, except the pie is a 40-ton light rail vehicle. And yes, someone will undoubtedly say we should be grateful it's almost done. Nothing says gratitude like applauding a marathon runner who after 14 years crosses the finish line and immediately trips over the metal stand onto a spectator. Little did we know that in Toronto, transit planning dates are just decorative ornaments. And make no mistake, this isn't just about one tragic incident, it's about what this incident represents. Years of mismanagement, a culture of excuses, and the utter disconnect between the people running these projects and the people they're supposed to serve. It's about a system where billion-dollar contracts are handled by private consortiums that have every incentive to stretch timelines, increase costs, and cut corners because they still get paid. It's about a political culture that treats massive delays and public frustration as just part of the process, something we should all get used to. Now, some will try to spin this as we're learning valuable lessons from testing. Right, and I suppose the Titanic was just an advanced iceberg detection program. If this is what happens under controlled testing, what confidence should the public have when these trains are actually carrying thousands of passengers every day? And the insult to the public is almost poetic. 14 years of construction hell, road closures, business suffering, drivers swearing, sidewalks blocked, and before anyone could even take a joyride on this thing, it's already made headlines for the wrong reasons. This isn't just bad luck, it's a symbol. It's the Crosstown saying to Toronto, you thought the delays were bad? Oh, we're just getting started. But here's the most ridiculous part. After years of delays, and billions of dollars spent, and entire communities having been disrupted, this was supposed to be the easy part. Testing is boring. Testing is routine. It's the part where you quietly tick off boxes so that when you finally open, everyone feels reassured. Instead, we got an opening act that looks like a dress rehearsal for a disaster. In any sane system, after this, the project's managers would hold a press conference, apologize profusely, and admit we have failed. But no, this is Toronto, so we'll get a vague statement about ongoing safety reviews and our thoughts are with the injured party and so on, and in a week, it'll be buried under the next announcement that, surprise, the opening is once again delayed. So when the Crosstown finally opens, and whether that's going to be in 2025, 2026, or sometime in the distant future when our grandchildren are explaining to their grandchildren what construction used to mean, we knew we were stepping into a piece of history. A history that had been delayed, overcharged, and mismanaged so thoroughly that it had to injure someone before it carried a single passenger, just to prove it was still capable of surprises. And yet, we would ride it. Of course we would, because after 14 years of barricades, lawsuits, budget blowouts, and press conferences where officials told us, straight-faced, that everything was on track, we had learned the peculiar Toronto skill of celebrating crumbs as though they were banquets. You give us a working train after a decade of chaos, and we'll clap like seals at feeding time. And that's not because we're naive, it's just because we understand the absurd economics here. We paid for it twice over. We suffered for it daily. And when it finally arrived, late and limping, we were determined to wring something out of it. It wasn't a triumph of planning or competence or safety, no. The Eglinton Crosstown is a triumph of endurance. It didn't so much open as it simply gave up resisting us. And in that moment, sitting in a brand new LRT seat that had been gathering dust for years, we could finally say, well, at least it's moving. I hope that you liked the video. If so, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed and want to be notified of new videos that are released, please click on the Art Toronto button here. This is the video that I would recommend for you to watch next, and I'm sure that you're going to love it. Here's the playlist for all of the latest in transit news and views that you're going to find very informative and interesting. And finally, here is the latest video. Thanks for watching, and happy transiting.